And hello and welcome to everyone else. And yes, now we have, okay, I think everyone's here. So hello and welcome to the next session of Discovering Buddhism, Module 6, all about karma. So this is session 2 of the module. So last week during the first session, we did a more extensive prayers at the beginning. And now we have a lot of material to cover. So we're going to do just a more abbreviated prayers at the beginning. And before we do that, just to adjust our motivation in a brief way, please think that now here on this occasion, that the purpose of your life is to benefit all sentient beings. And therefore, in order to benefit sentient beings in the best way, you need to first actualize the highest state of enlightenment. Then and only then will you have the skills, the knowledge, the power, the ability to lead sentient beings in the most effective way from the oceans of samsaric suffering to the state of enlightenment. Therefore, in order to learn about all the stages, all the practices that lead to enlightenment, you are now going to participate in today's lecture and discussion. And also think that due to the merit that we create in our time here today, may all of that only become the cause for all sentient beings to quickly attain enlightenment. Okay, and so now we'll do just the normal taking refuge in generating bodhicitta that we say at the beginning of a teaching session. So here again, just like we do in our meditation practice, we can visualize that all the sentient beings are in the space around us. And we can also visualize that our guru in the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha is in the space in front of us. And remembering the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha and aspiring to attain those qualities within ourselves. Then we take refuge. We basically recommit ourselves to following in the footsteps of the Buddha by practicing the Dharma as he has taught and as the Sangha is, also practicing and supporting our practice as well. So with that, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Okay. All right, so before we get started, then we have to welcome a newcomer. Victoria was in one of the classes that I did on debate, and she got in touch and wanted to know if there's any other classes that I was conducting, and I said yes. Actually, we just started one, and so having consulted with the powers that be at Ocean of Compassion Center, we're letting her join. So welcome, Victoria. Now, I had said this at one of the earlier, I think the first module, I had this, I thought it was a kind of pep talk to motivate everyone on the class, right? Saying that, I'm only one person. And now when we do these sessions on Zoom, then we have, people from all over the world. So most of the people on this Zoom are from the US. And the kind of, I hope it inspired you, but to maybe inspire you to think like how serious what we're doing is, I had a sort of goal that everyone on the class, right, by the end of these 2 years of studying the Lam Rim, they would become the very expert of Lam Rim in their individual postal code. Okay, postal code, right? So now, Victoria is actually joining us from well, another country. Can I say where you're from? She's from Russia. So now, since we don't have any other Russians here on this class, you might have to set your goals a little bit higher and be the foremost expert of Buddhism in, can we say Moscow? Is that okay? Okay, great. I like that kind of confidence. Yes. Okay, we got 2 years or a little bit more. So, you try your best. I'll try my best. And then everyone else, this community that we have going here, we're also here to help each other, support each other. So we can all, support ourselves in those aspirations. Okay? All right. So now, if that wasn't motivating enough, what we had also done on some of these sessions, okay, wait, hold on. So the first session, we did more extensive, where is this? I wanted to read mode, reading view, okay. Oops. Okay, on the first session, we did more extensive prayers. And then on further sessions, I wanted to start with quotations that are from the great Indian masters. And many of these are cited in, well, this one is cited in Lamrim Chenmo. And so it gives us an opportunity to, reflect more about our motivation for the session and our lives. So here, the great Indian master Arya Sura said, "Those who have obtained a human life rich in virtues through a collection of merit over innumerable eons, and who then, due to confusion in this life, fail to accumulate even the slightest treasury of merit, will in future lifetimes enter the house of unbearable sorrow. Like the traders who go to a land of jewels and return empty-handed, without the karmic paths of the 10 virtues, you will not obtain a human life again. How can there be happiness without a human life? Without happiness, there is only suffering. Therefore, you have only deceived yourself before going to the next life. There is nothing more confused than this." Okay? So here, in the first line, those who have attained a human life rich in virtues through a collection of merit over innumerable eons, guess what? That is all of us, right? All of us have the perfect human rebirth, fully endowed with the 8 endowments and the 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. And believe it or not, to attain such a rebirth like this, we practiced so well in our previous lives. We followed ethical discipline very purely. We were able to practice generosity and practicing the other 6 perfections. We practiced a good deal of purely following our virtuous friend in order to even see or be in a land where the teachings and the great gurus like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche are still appearing and teaching. So it's really unbelievable how much we practice in our last lives to get to this point, right? So now that we have this opportunity, if we don't make use of it, means fail to accumulate this treasury of merit. So just like in a treasury, right? If you spend the money, right? You spend all the previously accumulated wealth without getting more, then you'll become, quite destitute when all that runs out. So similarly, yes, we have this human life. With it, we can just, enjoy kind of like the past few weeks of what I've been doing here in Hawaii, not practicing much Dharma, but, enjoying the beach, enjoying, the great food and good times with family and friends. Yes, we can do that. But then what will happen then in the future lives, having not made the preparations by accumulating merit, by, practicing well, then it'll be just like the traders who go to a land of jewels, right? This mythical land of the wish-fulfilling jewels. as found in the the ancient Indian folklore, then going to these land of jewels and returning empty-handed. Okay, so then why? Because this thought of cause and effect, without the causes that come from practicing the karmic paths of the 10 virtues, then we will not obtain a human life again. And then if we don't attain a human life again, well, we'll be just, either born in the lower realms where we can't practice Dharma, either through not having, sufficient intelligence, not having access to the Dharma teachings, or being in such, unbearable suffering that we don't have any interest or even thought to practice. We only can think of, how can I get out of this, burning, house that has been lit on fire, right? And then, so how can there be happiness without a human life? Without this human life, and not just any human life, but the human life that is characterized by all the characteristics of the precious human rebirth, that especially having access to the Dharma teachings, having access to teachers that can explain the Dharma teachings well, and without having the leisure to be able to practice, attend teachings, go on retreat, and do our daily practices as much as we can, then there will only be more suffering in the future. Okay, so now I'll talk to myself. If we continue to just enjoy this life, go to the beach, and not make any preparations for our next life, we might think, oh, okay, I'm getting kind of free pass. I'm kind of tricking the my gurus. I'm tricking the Buddha, right? But no, it's not like that. Actually, we have only have ourselves that we're deceiving. We're only cheating ourselves, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche also likes to say, right? And there can be nothing more confused than to do this. Okay, so now here it says, without the karmic paths of 10 virtues, you will not obtain a human life again, right? And then without a human life, our progress towards the state of liberation and enlightenment will be basically blocked, right? We won't have the opportunity to practice again. So now, in order to make use of this precious human rebirth, then we have to learn about karmic paths. We have to learn about the 10 virtues. We have to learn about how we can accumulate this collection of merit and make preparations for our future lifetimes. Make preparations so that we can have this unbroken string of rebirth. So in a good rebirth like this, so we can make utmost progress along the path to enlightenment. Okay, so that is now the point of this module 6, all about karma. Okay, great. So now to review, okay, we have these outlines from the karma section in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, right? Here, developing believing faith in the law of cause and effect, the root of all health and happiness. So maybe those of you who weren't with us last week, or to review, right? We did talk a little bit about why now this believing faith in cause and effect is the root, means the foundation, the most important, the starting point of all health and happiness. And here, actually, in the previous slide, we see even some more reasons why, right? Right, and I mentioned this last week. Without practicing virtue, we won't attain a human life again. Even though we were saying in general, right, when I asked the question, okay, well, of all the realizations we would like to have, right, if we could pick one from the Lamrim, which would we want? Would we want just the realization of karma, cause and effect? And someone said, no, actually, they wanted the realization of emptiness. we could maybe take a poll later, but I wonder if anyone would want bodhicitta. Anyone? Bodhicitta? You only can choose one. Mary Ellen wanted emptiness last week, and now she's like, oh, bodhicitta, that sounds good too. It's not buy one, get one free. It's you can only choose one. Okay, anyway, something like that. Something like that, okay? But anyway, the point is here, right? Although, even if we want the realization of emptiness, even if we want the realization of bodhicitta, right? Since we're not going to do it in this life, most likely, we need to be able to train life after life to do this. And the only opportunity we have to train in bodhicitta, to train in wisdom realizing emptiness, is with a fully qualified precious human rebirth, right? That's why, you know, when we talk about the paths shared with the small capable being, medium capable being, great capable being, right? The foundation of these practices in the small capable being, right? The initial practitioner is to make sure we get a good rebirth in our next life. And that is a temporary goal shared by the practitioners wanting either liberation for themselves or the full-fledged Mahayana practitioner, okay? So that's why, that's one reason why this is the root, the foundation. Because even those other practices in the middle and great scope come after this is done. All right. So then within this, we had 3 sub-outlines, thinking about cause and effect in general, think about some of the specifics of cause and effect, and after thinking about these things, the way to modify your actions. So last week we covered, you know, in this first outline, thinking about cause and effect in general, we had the 4 general kind of features of karma, right? And how karma is fixed. Karma shows great increase. One does not meet with something if one has not created the karma for it to happen, and karma, once created, will not disappear of its own accord. Okay, so we went through those, and we also brought up some kind of discussion questions, some hopefully thought-provoking doubts that that could come up. Okay, so I hope you all thought about that over the past week. Okay. So maybe we can talk about that more later. But then the second outline is now thinking about some of the specifics of cause and effect. That in turn has 3 outlines. Think about the black side of cause and effect, think about the white side of cause and effect, and thinking about the doors that unintentionally lead to powerful karma. So now the first, thinking about the black side of cause and effect. Here it has again 3. The actual black karmic process, the teachings that make for heavy or light karma, and teaching what the results of these karmas are. Okay? So, first one, the actual black karmic process. Here we have the basically the 10 non-virtues, right? So this is also in our initial quote in the beginning by Agasura, right? So here, this is a slightly different translation of this verse from the Abhidharma Kosha by the great Indian master Vasubandhu. And it's also cited in the Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. So systematizing the most obvious among them, the Buddha said that the paths of action, virtuous or non-virtuous, are 10. So I hope all of you read the relevant sections from the reading, right? If you haven't, well, why not? But in any case, maybe from other contexts, you will know that these 10 non-virtues, there are 3 of the body, 4 of speech, and 3 of the mind. So the 3 of the body, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct; 4 of speech, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, gossip, and idle talk. Gossip and idle talk are, you know, looped in one together. And then the 3 of mind, covetousness, malice, and wrong views. Okay. So Here now, before we get into the specifics of those 10 virtues individually, then there's this sort of terminology, these factors that need to be complete for an action to be complete. Okay, and we'll get into what that means if it's not complete, but basically, right, for something to be a full-fledged path of karmic action, all of these factors need to be complete. If one of the factors isn't complete, then it's not a sort of full-fledged karmic action, right? And the upshot then is it won't necessarily have the power to ripen as an experience for the person doing it in the future. Okay. Remember in the outlines before, we were saying one does not meet with something if one has not created the karma for it to happen. Okay. So the full karmic deeds with all four factors complete, that will then, if it's not purified later, right, then, right, karma once created will not disappear of its own accord, right? So that is the full-fledged, with the four factors complete. Those then will ripen, they won't disappear, right? And they will be experienced by the person who has undertaken that action, okay? But if one of these factors is not present, incomplete, then it oh, hello? Okay, you can hear me? Okay. So it could ripen as an experience, but not necessarily. Okay. All right. So let's go through those. All right. So now for a karmic action to be complete, those four factors need to be complete. One is the basis. Okay. And so here, the basis, actually, there's two. In the presentation of that is found in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, it talks more about like the object, but also there is a basis in terms of the person acting, right? So that kind of goes without saying. There's the actor, right? The action, and the object of the action. Okay. So to make it give an example in terms of killing, right? We have the killer, the person who is killed, and the act of killing. Okay. So the basis includes the killer and the person or the being who is to be killed. Okay. So then the intention, and here in the parentheses, I'm using the terminology that is found in Lamrim Chenmo. Okay. So I had advised / urged you all to not just read the required readings, but particularly the section on karma in Lamrim Chenmo is more complete. It gives you more details, and so it's very good actually to read those two kind of side by side and look at the differences in the presentation. And as we'll see later, when you then find those differences between the two, then that gives a nice diving board, if you will, for inquiry. And then you'll see, oh, well, Liberation Palm of Your Hand says this, Lamrim Chenmo says that. Well, why is that? Right? And there's one case, which we'll see in a few minutes, where the translation in Liberation Palm of Your Hand is, in my opinion, very mistaken. So that's why this, if you just relied on that, then you could come to a wrong understanding. Okay. Anyway, this then, the second factor of intention, okay, that is then in turn divided into three. There is the recognition, right, or the perception, basically to recognize. In this case, well, we'll get to it later with the specific example in terms of killing. So I won't get into the details here. And then the motive, right, the motivation for the action, and then the delusion or an affliction underlying that motive, and then the deed or the performance of the action, and then the final step or the culmination of the action. Okay, so let's now put it into a specific example. So here, using killing as an example, we have the basis. Okay, so here we have the actor, right, the killer, who is a living being, and then we have the being that is to be killed. They also have to be a living being. Okay, then these three under the intention, there's a recognition, recognizing the living being to be a living being. Okay, and then the motive, wishing to kill the living being, the delusion, any of the three poisons, attachment, anger, or ignorance. Okay? And there in both texts, it gives the examples of how killing can be done with either, right? So, attachment, you could kill due to attachment for the taste of the meat, or wanting to wear the animal's hide or the animal's fur. And then out of anger, out of hostility towards an enemy, one could then, kill. And then the ignorance, they cite the example of, doing a blood offering to a god, thinking that that god would somehow be pleased if you did that kind of animal sacrifice. Okay, and then the deed. So here, whether one does oneself or has someone else do the action. Okay, and there it talks about using poison, weapons, mantra, right, magical spells, anything you do that would bring it out. And then the final step is that the basis means the person, the victim, they would die before you do. Okay, so yeah. There is some talk then. So why is this there? Dies before you do. Okay. So a lot of this talk about these karmic paths and so forth. It is very much explained in the Vinaya, the rules on monastic discipline, right? And so especially for these this action of killing, right? It's one of the root monastic vows. So in the Vinaya text, the text on monastic discipline, right? If you have a full action of killing another human being as a monk, right, as a monastic, then when that happens, and these the four steps, right, the four factors are complete, then one ceases to be a monk. One has broken a root vow. So then it becomes very important, right, to almost in a legalistic kind of way to know exactly, okay, well, what are the sort of edge, what is the specific criterion that would need to be in place for all these factors to be complete. Okay, so here in the case where, let's just say there's a there's a monk. Okay, this wouldn't happen, hopefully, but there's a monk, and the people in the US, maybe like in Hamilton, right? In Hamilton, the very famous musical that came out, right? There's a duel between two people. Okay, so let's say a monk, for some reason, gets into a duel with someone else. Okay, then in a duel, right? They take a certain number of steps to turn around and shoot. Okay, so they both shoot each other. Okay, they both shoot each other when they turn around. Okay, but the monk would die first. Okay, yeah. Then the other person, dies a little bit later. Okay, so that would be the final step. Wouldn't be complete. Okay. Now, actually, in the Pratimoksha vows, the monk's vows, also the lay vows, and so forth. Those vows only are taken to the time of death, right? When one dies, when you even all of you who've taken the Bodhisattva vows, right? You say, I, and right from now for the rest of my life, I go for refuge in the Buddha, the best of the two-legged beings, right? You do that in the refuge ceremony. Okay. What that means is those refuge vows, and then by extension, the refuge precepts you take, the lay vows, they extend to the time of death. Okay. Similarly with the monk's vows, you take them to your death. So now, if you, okay, uh, you got into a duel, you shot someone else, but they've shot you and you die first, okay, that pratimoksha vow no longer is there, right? So then the basis in the cases of the pratimoksha vow is the basis has to be someone with a pratimoksha vow, okay? So therefore, since the basis dies, they no longer have the pratimoksha vow, okay? And therefore, both the basis is incomplete and the final step is incomplete, okay? Because you die before the other person. You got it? Okay. So again, when we go through these, intricacies, it's not then to find a kind of loophole and say, okay, I really want to kill this person, but I'm going to make sure they kill me. It's not about that. But it's just to know, and then especially when you read these texts, that should think, oh, that's strange. They die before you do. What does that mean? Why do they say like that? And so I'm now just explaining that is the reason for having these extra words in there. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think that is good. Now there are a few kind of, oh, I see. Anne has raised her hand. Okay, Anne. Yeah.
I just have a quick question about delusions. I thought it said that like if you have very strong hatred versus like minor irritation, you know, the strength of the delusion will have an impact. Then is there something like anger is worse than attachment, which is worse than ignorance or anything like that?
Um, well, in general, they say there's no sin like hatred or anger, because that also destroys your previously accumulated roots of virtue, right? But when it comes to, and I think this is your question, when it comes to someone killing out of anger, someone killing out of attachment, or someone killing out of ignorance, then which is stronger, right? Then I'm not sure there's a real kind of hard and fast formula, but it does say in the later section, right, that amongst people who kill out of anger, right, then the stronger the anger, a stronger anger killing is more heavy than a lighter anger killing. Okay, but someone doing out of ignorance, I've seen in the text that is one of the it also depends what kind of ignorance there is, right? The ignorance that says, okay, there is no karmic consequence to this action because there is no karma, there's no past and future lives, right? Having that kind of strong delusion, right? That is what they call, one's roots of virtue get cut, right? Have you heard that phrase? One's roots of virtue get cut. Okay. So that is a particularly, you know, uh, uh, pernicious form of ignorance, very difficult form of ignorance, right? So, yeah. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was
But if you want to say like, okay, you know, out of 100, you know, someone, 65 out of 100 anger, is that worse than, 95 out of 100 of attachment, something like this, which is worse? Then I can't say.
yeah, I was having a this conversation with the teacher with regard to like um human sacrifice,
Mm,
of that kind of killing, because it wasn't anger, it would be
right,
ignorance. and and if it's the intention to actually help that being, is, how does
right.
it affect? So
Well, later in see, and later we'll get to this.
okay.
The differences that make for heavy or light karma, right? Um, and here, huh? Actually, the section in Lamrim Chenmo is more complete. I'm just looking down in Liberation Palm Your Hand, and it's very, mm, it's just like a few pages, right? But in Lamrim Chenmo, it's a lot more extensive. So there, I remember the kind of it talking about the sort of, I mean, it doesn't talk about human sacrifice, it talks about animal sacrifice, right? They say that that's particularly heavy, right, out of anger. Sorry, out of ignorance. So uh, I would say in general is heavier than out of anger.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right. So next, um, I, out of interest of time, okay, I'm not sure we had time to really go through the 10 non-virtues. Now that we've gone through with killing, okay, then when we go back to the list of 10, hopefully you'll be able to kind of figure out for yourself what would be there, right? So when you read through the text, uh, it does explain, and most of the things I think you would know, right, just by reading. But there are some kind of notable points that I wanted to highlight. Okay, and depending on the time and your interest, we can go into this stuff more or less. Okay. So one notable point I think you saw in the discussion on killing is that ordering someone to do it or doing it yourself, it accrues the same karma, right? Being done. And then there is this quotation. Okay, so in Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, when it says a treasury of metaphysics, okay, that means the Abhidharma Kosha by Vasubandhu. Okay, so there it says it is one for armies and so forth. All of them have equally done the deed. Okay, so I'm reading now from Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand. That is, if 8 people kill a sheep, each of them does not receive a share of the deed. Each one receives the full sin of killing a sheep. When a general sends out many soldiers to the slaughter and 1,000 men are killed, okay, each soldier commits the sin of killing as many men as an individual soldier is capable of doing. The general, however, gets the full sin of killing all 1,000 men. So that is, important to just know uh, and think about. Mm. So then, just regarding this, a little bit down, there was something that I found really amazing. Okay, then Pabong Rinpoche, he then speaks about the monks killing animals to eat, and toward the end of the section, then he says this: my own guru, this is Pabong Rinpoche speaking. Actually, I think we can share this. Hold on. Do I have it? Okay. Sorry. Can you see this? So here. My own guru, my precious refuge and protector, delighted in making others give up killing other beings, and was better at it than anyone else. And when I went to Kham, that's a region in Tibet, I was able to put an end to the annual mass slaughtering of the animals that Sok Sedem and other monasteries used to carry out to raise funds. I think this is the best thing I have done in this life for the Dharma. Okay. So again, not only in these classes are we, talking about the text, but we're also talking about how to read the text. And so, I think I mentioned before, when you read these texts, the things that kind of stand out to you, kind of surprise you, right? Those are really good things to contemplate. And so this is one where I read it and I was like, wow, isn't it? Of all the activities, Pabon Rinpoche, he was such a great teacher. He was the guru to so many of the great lamas in the lineage. Gave many teachings, did a lot of retreat. But compared to all those things, going to this region and putting an end to this practice of the slaughtering of animals, for him to say that he thinks is the best thing he's done in his life for the Dharma. Pretty interesting, pretty significant. Okay, what do you think? Right? All right. Okay. So then, then normally in the okay, sorry, I see a hand up. Jorge and Melody. Oh, your hand is down now.
It was up. So I wanted to talk more about the best thing I ever done for the Dharma.
Okay.
I kind of agree. Initially, I don't question it because I look at it as quantifying it. He saved not only at his time but also for future generations. So it's kind of like a forever lasting thing, rather than like a temporal like retreat or anything he's done. So I don't see a reason to question this sentence.
Well, you see, that's the thing, right? Okay, just to talk about this a little bit. See, when you do retreat, okay, all right, let's look to the future. When you become enlightened, right, then you'll have so many disciples. You'll lead so many disciples to liberation, to enlightenment, okay? And so just doing retreat, it's not like, okay, 3 years and it's done. But actually what you're doing is you're zooming along. You're making a lot of progress toward enlightenment, right? So, to say that, oh, the saving these animals that continues on forever. Well, actually, every practice that we do with this mindset of bodhicitta, that also has limitless benefits that extend, until the end of samsara, right? Now, I'm not disagreeing with Pawonka and saying no, because actually, to know the full workings of karma and what's going to be really beneficial in the long term, man, you need a lot of clairvoyance, right? That statement, to disprove, I think you would need to I think you need to be a Buddha to say, no, you're wrong. Right? So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, as we read, it surprised me. It was like, oh, really? He thinks that? I didn't, it's just, oh, that kind of feeling. Not, what are you talking about? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So yeah, because I thought of it as yes, he's helped an area where it's not as salvable as another area. That's why. So I'm like, okay, he did the most he could at, I don't want to say the worst place, but like a place where it almost seemed that it was impossible to save.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this is something I like these questions, the open-ended question, especially, right? When we say the best thing I've ever done, there's no definition, right? There's no kind of formula you can put it in. I mean, uh, it's also interesting, those of you who've studied Lama Tsongkhapa's biography, right? With the 4 great deeds that Lama Tsongkhapa did, right? Do you know? Anyone? No? Shanti. Shanti, yes.
I know one is the Molam festival and some restoring some Maitreya Buddha temple or statue. And I know that none of the writing of the text is there in the four.
Right. Okay. Good. That what you've said is all true, right? So the 4 deeds, right? Establishing the Monam festival, okay, which still goes to this day, is one. Then second, restoring a Maitreya statue in a place called, Z, right? Right. And then the third, giving the teachings on Vinaya. There's a text, the Namse Dengma, a teaching clarifying points on Vinaya. Anyway, but Shanti, you got me excited because what you said, the other thing, right, of all those treatises that Lama Tsongkhapa, wrote, right, the ones that, Essence of Eloquence, right, his commentary on Guisamaja Tantra, the Lamrim Chenmo, none of those were considered one of his great deeds, right? And so it's a little bit amazing. Oh, okay. Shoot, this is really going to bother me. Okay. Anyway, so when we think about, okay, why are those 4 considered the great deeds of Tsongkhapa, whereas these other deeds, right, going on retreat, composing these texts, why aren't they considered in the 4? So that's very interesting. But anyway, we don't have time to get into all that now. But anyway, my point is not that I'm disagreeing with Pawonka here, but I'm just saying, as we read the text, when we encounter something that is a little bit, oh, really? Surprising, then make a note of those. Think about it, okay? So, it could be the case, too, that, Pawonka Rinpoche actually doesn't think this, right? But in the audience, he knew there was a lot of meat eaters, okay? He knew there's people doing this. And so when he says then, this is the best thing that I've done, then the meat eaters in the crowd are like, oh man, okay, maybe I should change my behavior, right? This is what we were talking about earlier with the interpretable and definitive teachings, right? So sometimes, even these statements that are found in the text by the gurus, by the Buddhas, right, by the great masters, they're not to be taken literally. So we have to investigate more. Okay. All right. Now, normally, to get onto this next point, the difficult points regarding killing. So this often comes up, in the kind of beginners courses that I do. Then a lot of questions come up about, euthanasia and, killing others to save lives. So what I would recommend when you go through these points, then we always go back to these 4 factors, and are they complete or not? Okay. So let's take the example of euthanasia, and think about it. So would euthanasia then, right? So sorry, do you know what that is, Victoria? So mercy killing, they call it. Someone who is very old, very sick, then to kill them so they don't suffer, or more commonly, and putting a dog to sleep. Killing a dog maybe, or like a horse or something that's broken its leg, right? They call it mercy killing. Okay. Anyway, so what do you think? Would that be complete? So easy basis, yeah, that's complete. Oops, right? Deed, yes, that would be complete if you administer, morphine or however you do it, right? That would be the deed. Final step, if that person then dies, that is also complete. Okay? All right. So now, intention, recognition, right? You recognize the person, right? The sick person to be a living being. Yes, probably. Motive, yes, you then want to kill them. That would be complete. But how about delusion? It would be complete. So I see Mary Ellen nodding. So you can unmute yourself and explain how.
I think that it would be complete because it would be aversion for seeing somebody suffer. It would be attachment in your not wanting to either be without this person or this animal, and it would be ignorance because you have no idea. You have no way to know what the action, what the result of that action would be for that being.
Okay.
You don't have that insight, but yeah, I think that I think everything's always mixed with that. When is it even when someone kills themselves, it's not a peaceful, clear mind.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now it is just interesting what you said when you said ignorance, because you don't know what's going to happen. But actually, we don't ever know what's really going to happen about anything, even our virtuous actions, right? So then are they all, even the virtuous actions, are they motivated by ignorance? If we're having the bar for just that,
It's in the mix all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, what you brought up actually is, when Lama Ishe, who's the founder of the FPMT, when he was asked this question about mercy killing, he made that point, saying that, when we see the dog there, we see the suffering. We see the suffering. We think, oh, I'm putting the dog out of its misery. But actually, since we don't have the clairvoyance to see what kind of karma the dog has, we don't see where the dog is going to be reborn. Now, if it is the case that that dog is then, sitting on some very heavy negative karma where the dog would be reborn in the hell realm, right? Then actually, compared to the hell realm, even the most intense suffering of the dog, right, with a broken leg, who's about to die and sick in whatever way, is like a pleasure cruise compared to the hell realm. So in that sense, we think, oh, I'm doing something to help the dog, but the dog, let's say the hell being, if they could see what happened, they're like, man, why did you leave me suffering as a dog? Why did you kill me? It's kind of like that. So what Lama Isha said was, unless you have a level of clairvoyance where you can, see and say for certain where that animal is going to be reborn, then don't do. Okay. But then there's this question, killing others to save lives. Oops. Right. And we always have that famous Bodhisattva captain story in the Lamrim, where the Buddha in one of his past lives was on a merchant ship, saw that one of the people on board was going to kill the 499 merchants. The Bodhisattva, motivated by compassion, then thought, thinking about how unbearable the karma, the experience that person then would have, having murdered 499 people, then said, okay, even if I have to take rebirth in hell myself, I would rather do that than to have this other person. And then it said that was a particular kind of skillful means that shortened the Bodhisattva's time in samsara by 80,000 eons, something like that. So then the question is that an actual path of a non-virtuous action? No. So let's put it this way. If that Bodhisattva had the Pratimoksha vow not to kill, would they have broken their root vow? I see someone say yes. Right. Okay, maybe we'll get into this later about the vows in more detail. But it does say clearly in the Vinaya text that to even motivated by compassion, right? Then a monk who does with the other factors being complete, they would lose their pratimoksha vow. Now the thing is, those of you who have taken the Bodhisattva vows before, then you'll know within the Bodhisattva vows there's one that says, it's a fault to not break a pratimoksha vow if it's more benefit to do so. So these are very, very, very extraordinary cases, okay, not to be entered into lightly. I think we spoke about this in one of the other modules, right? There's always a lot of debate about this, right? So it's not just, I think like this, right? The Bodhisattva had clairvoyance, right? So it's a very, and of course was a full-fledged Bodhisattva, right? So it's not like for us, we say, oh yeah, it's more beneficial if I do this. Sometimes I justify, we have, as monastics, we have the vow, not to eat after noon, but in Sera Monastery, they take that very lightly because they say, oh, but you're going to debate until 10 p.m. You're studying, you're memorizing, you need your energy, right? So then what happens many times, you come back from debate like 9:30, you still have to memorize text afterwards. So you go back into the kitchen and you're like, okay, I need energy. Then what happens? You have some apples, some carrots, then you have the chocolate, right? So then you're like, okay, yes, I'm going to eat this food. I'm going to break my pratimoksha vow so that I can continue to study and practice for the benefit of all sentient beings. But then what do you choose? Right? You choose the chocolate. Yeah, that one. Anyway, just joking. But not really. In every joke, there's a bit of truth, right? Okay. So, yeah, that is one thing to keep in mind. Then, of course, in more obvious sort of situations that we'll be in, because we're not bodhisattvas with clairvoyance, sometimes people will ask about, okay, well, what if the people in, say, the police or armed forces, they see for example, a terrorist about to, detonate a suicide bomb in a crowd, then what about to kill that person? Hmm. So some things to think about. So anyway, and then some people also say, okay, well, what if I go in the jungle and then there's a tiger about to, eat me, and the only way to save myself is to kill the tiger? What about a kind of self-defense clause? Do you guys think about this? Or sometimes people say, oh, I've had this parasites, intestinal parasites, and I'm very sick. If I take the medicine, then what? I'll kill all these kind of parasites. Probably, just for your knowledge, probably the parasites are sentient beings, right? Single cell organism, bacteria, difficult, but the parasites, once you get to some level of multi-cell organisms, probably sentient being. We also see in the sutras, the Buddha, when we do offering of charity of food, we offer, to the parasites in our body. We say, I'm offering this food, and later may give the parasites or the sentient beings within my digestive tract. May I be able to, feed them the, nourishment of Dharma. So it does seem in the traditional Buddhist context that there are sentient beings living within our digestive tract. Yeah. But, if they get out of control, if they get out of balance, it can cause, severe illness. So what do we do? Okay, I'll let that simmer for you guys, and then we'll talk about that later. Okay, so now here's something also now getting to sexual misconduct. Let's see. So did you notice this? Okay, by the way, can I just have a show of hands? How many of you read both of these sections in Lamrim Chenmo as well as Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand? Okay. Okay, thank you for your honesty. Okay. Okay. So I'll ask you maybe. Shanti, did you notice any difference in these two presentations, particularly about sexual misconduct?
No, I don't remember.
Okay, so who was it? Who else did? Victoria, did you read both? Amazing.
Yeah,
Did you notice any differences?
I noticed one interesting thing that Lamrim, it was written by the man, only by for the man, not for woman. No?
Yeah, yes, that's true. Yes, that is true.
Mhm.
Yeah. But actually, I think the same could be said about Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand. The audience was 97.6%, men there too. But I'm talking about in particular these four factors that make something complete. Okay, so I'll bring it up. Okay. Let's see. Let me do a new share. Okay. Oops. Okay, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct. Okay. Okay. So The delusion is one of the three poisons. The motive is wanting to engage in perversion. The deed is the two organs coming into contact, and so forth. The final step is completed when one experiences orgasm. Okay. Now let's look at this is now Lamrim Chenmo. Okay. Okay. So this is actually a little bit interesting. We'll get to that later. Okay, here we go. So the affliction is any of the three poisons. The motivation is the desire due to unchastity to copulate. As for the performance, okay. The compendium of determination states that in terms of causing others to commit sexual misconduct, the instigator of such an action incurs the misdeed of sexual misconduct as well. However, Treasury of Knowledge Auto Commentary explains that such an instigation is not an actual path of action. Okay, you should examine whether Asanga's explanation may mean that such an instigation is a fault, which is not an actual path of action. Okay, we're going to talk about that later. But here, the culmination is the sexual union of the two parts. Okay, culmination in Lamrim Chenmo is akin to the final step in liberation of the palm of your hand. You got that? Okay. So then, sorry, let me share that again. So if this is true, according to Lamrim Chenmo, the sexual union, the culmination is the sexual union of the two parts, right? It's a little bit unclear for the performance, right? Right? Here, it doesn't really talk about, it just says, okay, if you know, just like we did for killing, right? This is what that means. If for killing, you say, oh, can you kill this person for me, right? Then you get the karmic action of killing. The other person who actually does the killing, you know, also gets the full karmic path of killing. Okay. So in this commentary, now what it's saying is there's this debate, right? Compendium determinations, right? So causing others to commit sexual misconduct, right? Then the instigator incurs the misdeed of sexual misconduct as well. However, Treasury of Knowledge Auto Commentary, okay, this is Abhidhamma Kosha. Auto Commentary means the commentary that Abhasubandhu wrote himself, explains that such an instigation is not an actual path of action. Okay, so yeah, we're all adults here. So this would be maybe a situation where, you know, like voyeurism, one, you know, then let's say they pay to watch, right? Okay, so the one is then saying that the person paying, they're not, you know, they're not getting the full karmic act, or the other one is saying, yes, they do get a sexual act of misconduct. But it doesn't say, you know, if one is doing oneself, what the deed is, right? And so if according to the Lamrim Chenmo, the deed is when the, sorry, what is the exact words? The union of the two parts, okay? Then, see here in Liberation of the Palm of your hand, the deed is the two organs coming into contact, and final step is when one experiences orgasm. So that makes sense, right? First you have the deed, and then you have the kind of final step. Just as, you know, shooting the gun, right? That's the deed. Then the person dying, that's the final step, right? So for sexual misconduct, for Lamrim Chenmo, then the parts coming into contact, that's the final step. If that's true, what is the deed? And is the deed and the final step simultaneous? Right? Do you understand the question? You understand the what's being tricky here? Okay. So this is what I mean. when we read the two, that's what I had in mind. Oh, wait a minute. Lamrim Chenmo is talking like this. Liberation of the palm of your hand is talking like this. If we believe this, then we have to ask for Lama Tsongkhapa. Is the final step and the deed simultaneous? Okay. Yeah, Marianne.
I don't have the Lamrim Chenmo in front of me, but I have the middle length Lamrim Lingpa, and they say the performance or the deed is consistent striving for that goal, and completion is the two organs joining together. So performance consisting in striving for that goal would be the deed. So they're not the same according to this Lamrim that Lama Tsongkhapa wrote. Different.
Okay, well, what does that mean? Like for example, okay, and sorry to be, we have to debate that, okay? Performance, striving to that goal, if I set up a online profile, on a dating site, right? Is that the deed?
It's not the physical deed, but perhaps it's the mental deed. You're getting kind of, and that gets into that gray area. And were these the teachings of the Buddha, or did somebody put this in later?
Yeah, these are questions. Well, for sure, in the monastic text, the Vinaya, it does talk about this, because this again is another of the 4 root vows of monastic. Okay. So anyway, there is a lot to debate here, a lot to think about. But I'll say this, actually. This is problematic. Actually, in the Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, this is where I was talking about the translation being off. Okay, sorry, Mary Ellen, you have the middle length Lamrim in front of you. So what does it say the final step is?
The completion consists in the two joining with each other. Doesn't say two organs, doesn't say what it says, the two joining with each other.
Right. Yeah, you can imply the you can assume it means the two organs touching each other. Okay. Now, then again, yeah, that's strange. Where then does the deed start? Right. That's very interesting for if we're following, the Lamrim Chenmo, right? If I, if someone, a bachelor, not a monk, of course, if a bachelor, right, they want to go out to a bar and meet someone, right? Like when they I don't know, start to take steps to the bar, is that an action? Is that where the deed starts? Is it only when they start talking to a potential, love interest that it starts? Anyway, that's something interesting to think about. But here, okay, that's not what I wanted to get into. Here, what I wanted to say is in Liberation of the Palm of Your Hand, it says the final step is completed when one experiences orgasm. Okay, which then, it's very much at odds with these other presentations of by Tsongkhapa, where it's just the two organs touching, meeting, right? So now, this is my hypothesis. This is an incorrect translation. In the Tibetan, it says, Dewa, Dewa Nyong. Dewa, you might know from Dewa Chen, right? Dewa is bliss. Nyong is experience. So it literally means the experience of bliss, which, well, it becomes before the orgasm. Now, why is that mentioned? Okay, because it's mentioned in the Vinaya text because there are the examples of someone being raped. Okay, so yeah, and nuns being raped, they have the if they've been raped, the organs come into contact. But since they have the mind resisting, right, they're not right. There's no how do you say, motive to do it, but also the final step is not complete. But there is, and this is highly controversial, I'll just how do you say, put that out there as a disclaimer, okay? But there is then debate whether, if during that action, if they later sort of say okay and kind of give in, right, and then experience some pleasure after that, then in some of the commentaries on Vinaya, they then say, well, they have then broken the root vow. Okay? So the point is, in the Vinaya text, okay, just logically speaking, it seems very strange if the deed and the final step would be simultaneous.
Yeah.
Right? So they then have to posit something, where there could be some separation. So normally, okay, it would be, cause and effect. There's the meeting of the organs that induces a feeling, and then one feels the pleasure, right? Cause and effect. Or let's make it easier. You eat the food, first you put it in the mouth, then you experience the taste of pleasure, right? It's really quick. It's really quick. But since the food is the cause of the pleasure that's induced by it, they're not simultaneous, because cause and effect are not simultaneous. Do you understand? So if you understand in terms of food, you'll understand in terms of this, sexual misconduct. So in the Vinaya text, it talks like that, right? They can be, very quick after each other, but it is not orgasm. Okay, it is when one then experiences some kind of pleasure from doing. Then there's the further kind of debate. Well, what if it's not, pleasurable? Then that just means that there's a kind of mental, like, how do you say? It's like done with your volition. You're like happy that it's being done. It doesn't have to be like, physical pleasure, but it's like, yes, I'm glad I'm doing this. Yes, I'm glad this is happening. Understand? Okay. So yeah, I am not shrinking back from controversy, but again, these are things to think about, these are things to debate, and you'll see different presentations in different texts. Okay. So next step, or the next bullet point, is lying to save someone else. Here, Popon Rinpoche is talking about, right? He says, it would not be right to give an honest answer if some potential killers ask you, where has our victim gone? Okay. So this is also an example in Immanuel Kant, right? In his text on the metaphysics of morals, right? There's this thought that he has of the categorical imperative, right? Where he says that, for something to be moral, then it should be a kind of absolute rule for everyone. So if it is, immoral to lie, then it's always immoral to lie. So he argues that even if the person comes to your door and says, oh, where is whoever, then he says it would be immoral to lie, and you should say, oh no, he's in the back, he's hiding in the closet, But that kind of goes against our kind of moral intuition, right? Does it not? Yes. So here, Pomok Rinpoche says, okay, however, those who still have some misgivings over this must do the following. when asked, did the man go this way, you should say something irrelevant to throw them off, like, I'm going around to see what's his name tonight. Okay. So that then doesn't become, lying. But in my opinion, I think to lie in this case would be an example of the, even if it is breaking a Pradimoksha vow, it would be breaking a lesser vow for the kind of greater good. Okay. So next, harsh words. This is also one thing that stuck out to me. Let me do, let me actually share the Liberation palm of your hand. Okay. Harsh words. The basis of harsh words could be either a sentient being that serves as the basis of development of harmful intentions, or an inanimate object such as a thorn. This whole section is very interesting to me. Okay,
Did you
the
need to share
recognition.
that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I pressed share screen. Okay. This is Liberation palm of your hand. So harsh words, right? The basis of harsh words could be either a sentient being that serves as the basis for the development of harmful intentions, or an inanimate object such as a thorn. The recognition should be unmistaken. The delusion of it is one of the three poisons. The motive is wanting to say such words. The deed is speaking about the faults in another person's ethics, race, body, and so on. You could tell truth or lies. For example, you could say you're blind to either a blind person or someone who's not blind. When you talk about the faults in other person's ethics, race, body, and so forth, even if you say it pleasantly, you have committed the misdeed of harsh words if the other person's feelings are hurt. Final step is when the meaning of the words is understood. The words must be understood. The karmic process is therefore incomplete if you say them to inanimate objects. Okay. James, I do see your hand is raised, but I'm going to now just switch, and we're going to look at Lamrim Chenmo. Okay. So here they call it offensive speech. The basis of offensive speech is a living being in whom you can engender hostility. Okay. Oh, of the three aspects of the category of attitude, the perception and the afflictions are as before. The motivation is a desire to speak in an offensive manner. The performance is saying something unpleasant, which may be either true or false, about the deficiencies of someone else's family, lineage, body, ethical discipline, or behavior. As for the culmination, compelling with determination says the end is speaking in a defensive manner to the person. The Treasury of Knowledge auto commentary explains that the meaning of this to be that the person to whom the offensive speech is spoken must understand it. Okay, so what difference do we see between these two presentations? One is this whole thing about the basis, right? Hobon Vermiche and says it can be an inanimate object. In Lamrim Chenmo, it says it must be a living being. Okay. Now, the question then, right? If it's an inanimate object, right? Let's say you stub your toe on a rock, and you say whatever, right? You say some swear words. Okay. Well, there it says, final step is when the meaning of the words is understood. Here, let's go back to Liberation of Palm hand. Right? Final step is when the meaning of the words is understood. The words must be understood. The karmic process is therefore incomplete if you say them to inanimate objects. Right? So the karmic process is incomplete if you say them to inanimate objects. But the basis can be an inanimate object. Now, if you then swear when you stub your toe on a rock, are you not hearing them? Do you not hear those words? Okay. In the text on all these non-virtues of speech, it does say that the basis has to be someone other than yourself. So even the lying, you know, you can imagine this in the morning. Some people do this to motivate themselves, talking in the mirror. You're the best. Okay. Now, whether that is a lie or not, or just anyway, don't worry. That's okay, because it has to be someone other than yourself hearing it. But the thought then comes to me, well, why then? Right. The whole point of this is that these harsh words, when they're heard by the other person, would cause some harm, right? But these inanimate objects, they can't hear. So how could they be the basis for the object of one's harsh words? Anyway, something to think about. You get it, right? Lamrim Chenmo says it must be a living being. Here it says, Pramod Rinpoche seems to say it can be an inanimate object, but the inanimate object necessarily won't be a complete path of action, right? But then by extension, okay, if you're walking with someone else, you stub your toe, you swear, and the other person hears, then it's a full path of action. But the other person who's hearing is not, they're not being harmed by the words, right? So that becomes a bit strange. You get a full path of karmic action. You haven't hurt anyone's feelings, right? And so all these kind of karmas, you're right, they have what we call, right? When you harm others, then you experience harm, right? That's the whole thing about karma. When you benefit others, you experience benefit. So here, or sometimes your computer is having problems, and you're like, oh man, or your network goes down. You shake your fist at Verizon or whatever, right? So what is being harmed there? Okay. Let's see. James, I knew you raised your hand, but let me just, you have a question that's pertinent to this?
It was related. Is it the transmission of your negative energy to another person that's the bad karma? Like I'm trying to get at so here's a theoretical example. Let's say I yell at my Alexa app, but I'm all alone. It's an intelligent assistant, and then it records it, and then somebody listens to that recording later. Like, is that bad action? Or if I'm alone and I just yell at it, is that not a bad act? Like, what? How could those two? If nobody ever listened to the recording, then I just yelled at it alone. So it made me wonder, like, what is it that makes it be a bad karma?
Right.
When you're yelling at an inanimate object. Yeah.
So this is something very good to ask Pramod Rinpoche, right? No, the point is this, okay, look, we always have to proceed from our normal, before we ever open the book about Buddhism, what are our normal kind of moral sensibilities, right? So when we think harsh words, it's like, we hurt other people's feelings by saying bad things to them, right? So even if I, for example, when I watch a movie, or if I hear a recording of someone say, "Oh, you're stupid, you're ugly," whatever, it doesn't harm me, even though I hear the words, because I know it's not referring to me. So similarly, the people in Jeff Bezos, kind of army of people who are listening to every word you say and mining all your data, right? Later when they hear those recordings, right? They're not offended. You know, you say something to, you know, bad to Alexa, right? So what then would the harm be?
I
Anyway.
think there is a harm because
okay.
it bothered me, so I stopped doing it. So there's something wrong with it, with being rude to inanimate objects. Yeah.
Okay.
But I can't
Now,
tell you why from the reading. But anyway.
Right. So okay, we have 2 hands up, and let's get those, and then I do have something that I'll say to what you just said. Mary Ellen, you were first.
So you have to bring it into a practical application. And in Geshe Sopa's commentary on Lamrim Chenmo, he says, the main thing is to realize when such actions are arising in your mind and to block them out before they occur. Try to avoid them as much as possible. So it's not just the action, but it is the arising in your mind of these things that become your habits that then eventually harm you.
So yelling to Alexa, is that the fault of harsh words? Yes.
I think so, yes. Yeah.
Because it's one thing to say, just, you know, when you feel anger and irritation, to not apply the antidote right away and then let it get to the point where you have this outburst, then you're creating kind of a habit, a propensity that later, then when you meet with actual people, you'll be more, you know, have a tendency to then yell at them too, right? So you'll be then more likely to commit the actual fault of harsh speech. But you're saying then just the harsh speech. Oh, so now, look, if you don't have an Alexa, okay, it's not being recorded and there's no chance for someone to listen to it in the future. You're alone in the room, you know, and you still say the harsh words. It's also the fault of harsh words. Yes, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but here, you know, we need these 4 factors to be complete. And see, in this case, if no one else hears it, it's not a complete karmic path, because it's very. Yeah.
Why can't you be the subject of your own bad karma? Like, why do they rule yourself out? Like, if I kill myself, I'm killing a sentient being. That should still be bad karma. I'm doing it to myself.
Yes, that is true. But the suicide, although it's a negative karma, it's not a complete karmic path. Right. Here's where it's coming to, right? Okay, let's take the lying, right? Lying, you know, usually, right, you're doing it to deceive someone else, right? You say, I don't know, this is a genuine Rolex watch. You know, give me whatever, 2,000 euros for it. It's not, right? So there's some deception. It's harming the other person in some way, right? Now, see, the root vow of lying is to lie about one's own spiritual attainments. And how that came into effect was, you know, at one time when there was a kind of famine in an area, the monks, you know, they go on their begging round to get food in the morning, right? You know this practice. And then, you know, since there was a famine, the monks had a very difficult time getting food. And so one had the idea, oh, if I say I'm an arhat, then, you know, whatever food there is, the lay people in the neighborhood, they'll respect me more and I'll get the food. So they lied about that. And then they got the food. But then the other monks kind of suffered, right? So anyway, you can see then how lying to someone else, or, you know, speaking harsh words to someone else, right? you can see very easily how that is negative. Someone's feelings are hurt, right? Now, I'm not denying that, if you get angry and you just allow yourself to be in the anger and you yell, that's not a good thing. So please don't do that. But the question is that a negative, karma of harsh words, a fully fledged? Anyway, something to think about. And we have these two presentations. Lamrim Chenmo says, it has to be a living being. Inanimate object doesn't count. Here in Liberation of Palm Your Hand, we have inanimate objects such as a thorn. Okay, so you'll find sometimes these two different presentations in two authentic sources. So these are very good opportunities when we see them to inquire. One of the reasons why I sort of asked you to read these two. But as Mary Ellen, you have the Lamrim, middle-length Lamrim, you have Geshe Sopa's commentary, you have Words of My Perfect Teacher, any other text that gives the treatment of the same subjects. There's 18 Lamrim texts, right? Any of those would be good, and when you read them, those are the things that I look for, right? What are the differences between these two? And then what are the authors thinking when they make such presentations? What is the reasoning? What are their own kind of scriptural sources? And then, sort of mentally then think, oh, which makes more sense to me given my kind of moral sensibilities. All right, last point, and then this is good. I like it. So last about this wrong view, right? So there's these questions. What is the recognition? What is the completion? So let me share again from these two different texts. Okay. So here, wrong view. Wrong view is to view these things as non-existent. Denying these things, for example, is saying they do not exist. Okay. The recognition is like the other 9 forms of recognition, except one does not recognize that the thing being denied is in fact true. The deed is actively denying the thing serving as the basis. The final step is to deny that it doesn't exist. This is actually, that's not very in-depth. But when we look at Lamrim Chenmo, oops. Sorry. Covetousness, malice, wrong view. Okay. All right. Basis of wrong views are existent objects of the 3 aspects of attitude. Perception is perceiving them to be true. The meaning of a mistaken denial of the existence of an existent object. Wow. Is any of the 3 mental motivation, the desire to deny the existence of an existent object. Okay. So here, already we see one difference. The perception is perceiving to be true the meaning of a mistaken denial of the existence of an existent object. Okay. Here, one does not recognize that the thing being denied is in fact true. Let me look at you guys again. You see? See the difference between the two? So let's say the 4 noble truths. Okay. When we have a wrong view about the 4 noble truths, so we deny that the 4 noble truths exist. Now, to be a full-fledged wrong view. One of these, who was it? In this, Tsongkhapa is seeming to say the perception is perceiving to be true the meaning of a mistaken denial of the existence of an existent object. So what does that mean? Do we recognize the Four Noble Truths to be true? We realize that the Four Noble Truths are true, and then we deny them anyway? No, right? No? Yes or no? No, right? So then that means someone who does recognize the Four Noble Truths is true, and then for whatever reason they go and say, oh, the Four Noble Truths aren't true. Do they not then have the wrong view? The full karmic path of wrong view? Okay, that's something to think about. All right, let's keep going. The performance is the initiation of the attitude. Moreover, there are 4 types of performance. Okay, anyway, this is some details. This is not what I want to come to. Okay, the culmination is the certainty that you have denied something. A full-fledged wrong view is associated with these 5 attitudes. An attitude of confusion due to not knowing objects of knowledge exactly. A violent attitude due to delighting in sin. An attitude that continuously operates in the wrong way because of pondering improper teachings. An attitude impaired because of a mistaken denial that thinks that such things as gifts, religious offerings, burnt offerings, and right behavior do not exist. An attitude that is dominated due to these wrong views by shamelessness and obliviousness about the determination to be free of its faults. So, if these 5 are not present, a wrong view is not full-fledged. Okay? Although it is certainly the case that there are other wrong views, only this is called wrong view, for it is the greatest of all wrong views, in that it is through this wrong view that you will sever all your roots of virtue. Here's that phrase that I said, sever or cutting your roots of virtue. Further, it is this wrong view that is conducive to your doing whatever sins you want. Okay? Why am I sharing all this? Because we did say earlier, that we do want to have this, inquiry, this mind of inquisitiveness and analysis, and not taking everything we see in the text as true. So, it could be the case that, analyzing something, we might say, oh, you know what? I actually don't think that past and future lives exist. But for it to be a full view, a wrong view, okay, if we don't have these other factors, violent attitude, delighting in sins, and all this, then it's not a full-fledged wrong view. I nonetheless would say that even though we have this attitude of being, curious, to not come to the, really strong conclusion and just say, you know what, based on the evidence, I'm leaning towards this, but I still need to do further investigation. Okay. So let's see. Yeah. Okay. So next, that was the section on the 10 non-virtues, and then in the next class we'll go through the differences that make for heavy or light karma. So yeah, that's what I wanted to cover this class. Now we can open it up for further questions, discussion, doubts.
I had a question about the 10 non-virtues of your own mind, like covetousness and malice. Because if you don't act it out, it's, it seems to me that it wouldn't be like a, you know, as bad as it could be, but they say that you are collecting a downfall if you have the negative thoughts.
Right. This is a good question. So let's look actually. Okay. This is important. What then the final step is, right? Because sometimes, you know, with our uncontrolled minds, we might have a thought of covetousness or malice come up, right? But just though it comes up, does that mean that's a full karmic action? So
I mean,
let's
from what I
look at.
read, I thought that it was a full karmic action.
Okay, so what did you read?
I don't remember exactly, but I mean, that's what I recall.
Right.
Them saying it was you know,
See,
harmful.
okay. Now let's look. So covetousness. This is liberation of the palm of your hand. Okay. Okay. Final step is when the thought becomes stronger, and still you decide that you will employ some means of making the valuable object your own.
Okay, but what about maybe with malevolence?
Okay. Harmful intent.
If you just have the malevolent thought, but you don't have the, you know, the impetus to, you know, really
Right.
harm the person.
So here, liberation of the palm of your hand. Okay. The deed is putting more effort in thought. Final step is deciding to harm that person.
Okay.
Now, let's check. So anyway, liberation of the palm of your hand then gives a different presentation than what you were just saying. Okay, at least there it says for the culmination, for the final step, you have to think, you have to make some effort to acquire that thing that you have covetousness towards, or to then decide, okay, I'm going to harm that person. Okay, but as we've seen, just because one text says something doesn't mean all of them are. Yeah. Okay. So this is covetousness. Okay, performance is striving. Okay, hold on. Okay, motivation is the desire to make the wealth or property your own. Okay, so it's not just saying like, oh, I like that person's whatever new iPhone. And if you think, for example, oh, I like that person's new iPhone, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna go to the Apple store and buy one myself. That's okay, right? Sorry, I'm just using it as an example. I'm not sponsored by Apple. I'm not supporting their products or any way. I'm just saying, right? It's to make the other person's property your own. Okay. And then furthermore, for this to be full-fledged covetousness, 5 qualities are required: a mind that is exceedingly attached to your own resources, a mind of attachment that wants to accumulate resources, having a mind of longing due to comprehending or experiencing good things of others, their wealth, and so forth, having an envious mind, thinking that whatever is another should be your own, having a mind that is overcome due to covetousness by shamelessness and obliviousness about the determination to be free from the faults of covetousness.
But that doesn't say that they actually took the thing or
Right.
tried
Okay.
to.
So look. So this is the performance, striving at that completed, contemplated purpose. Culmination is thinking, may it become mine.
Right, and that's a mental act.
So yeah. So that does seem then different from liberation of the palm of your hand. If you just say, oh, may that become mine. Liberation of the palm is saying, you know, deciding or, you know, making, you know, employ some means of making that valuable object your own. See, the deed here, I will make it mine. That seems to correspond to the final step in Lamrim Chenmo here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here again, we have the question, striving at that contemplated purpose. Strange. Okay. Can you strive without first having the thought, may it become mine, right? Why are you going to strive if you don't have the thought first, oh, I want that possession? So here we're arguing with Lama Tsongkhapa, bearing in mind that it seems just logically that remember, the deed and the final step should be sequentially, ordered. Okay, something to think about. There's 18 Marmon commentaries, so let's look at all of them and see what they got. Okay, Jorge and Melody.
Hi, I have two hopefully quick questions. The first one is in regards to euthanasia. So I know you're not, the example you gave about you need clairvoyance to see if whether or not they're going to a bad place or not. However, like if I put down my dog and because my dog can't move, is basically like on a ventilator, I think they can't generate any more karma. Shouldn't that be like expediting them to wherever they're going because their karma is set already and they're like.
Okay, so I saw Anne. I'm on gallery view, so I see Anne just do this really quick. I'm still thinking, but Anne had a very quick reaction, so I'm going to let her answer that. What do you think, Anne?
I think that we don't know if the dog has negative karma to exhaust through its suffering, so that it's not just over because it's on a ventilator. And actually, it's something I said to my father as he was dying. I explained to him, they say birth is suffering, death is suffering, old age is suffering, sickness is suffering, and that we exhaust incredible amounts of negative karma that we've accumulated over many lifetimes. So, yeah, that's what I think. I, of course, don't know any of this, but I think it's worth considering.
Yes. So, one thing I'll agree with wholeheartedly. So Jorge, you were saying that it's fixed by the time they're on the ventilator, but that is not the case. It is only at the very moment of death that the karmic seed that projects one to the next life, it ripens, right? So it could be the case that, let's say they're on that ventilator for a week, they could be exhausting a lot of negative karma that if they don't experience as a dog being on a ventilator, they would have to experience that in a much worse state.
Okay, yeah, I understand now. And so to take up your time, the second question is, clearly there's a lot of mistranslations, not misinterpretations, but interpretations of a lot of teachings. And I know you're supposed to test everything, whether it's gold or not. But once you decide if it's gold or not, are you at fault for later finding out that, oh, maybe this wasn't the right teaching? And are you supposed to live by your own moral standing? Like, how are we supposed to live our lives if there's no right answer?
No, there is a right answer. There is a right answer. The problem is coming to that right answer, right? So I agree that there's different interpretations, different things you'll read in different texts. We saw even a few here, right? So the point is, well, hopefully some of these debates we're having, we got into quite detailed view, but we all know that, for example, getting angry and shouting, right? We should try as much as we can not to do that. So in one level, it's academic, whether if we shout at Alexa or a rock, all this stuff, whether that is going to be a fully fledged karmic path, right? All this kind of very technical jargon. How we live our lives, right? on a very basic level, we know that afflictive emotions, they impel us to do negative actions. So we watch our minds. We see when there is attachment or anger or hostility or jealousy, okay? And then, as Shantideva says in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, when we see these afflictions arise in our mind, then we act like a piece of wood. For us, right? We then don't let those negative states of mind impel us into doing something with our body or our speech, right? Because it's a lot easier to control our body or speech than it is to control our mind. That's what we do, right? Then every time we do that, that at least is actually some antidote to the affliction, okay? Because the opposite, right? We get angry and we don't apply any antidote whatsoever, and then we just kind of let it take us. We let it impel us to yelling, even if it's to Alexa, right? Then we are creating that habit. That is, we had an affliction and we let it impel us to do something with our body and speech, right? That's we stop first.
Right. Thank you very much. I understood now.
Thank you. Okay, and
Thank you. So at the end of our last class with the path module on the path, the great Pandit Shanti Yajnik brought up the question about 3 types of phenomena, and if and is karma something that we can develop a inference through the power of belief. We have this whole, we ended like with a big open question, and now we have this first point is, generating or developing believing faith. So I'm wondering what this believing faith is, and is it, if because what came up is, is this something that we can generate, inference through the power of belief? How is that different than this reasoning with karma? And what I gather is the subtle karma is, knowing that if I called an arhat a monkey, and knowing that I'd have 500 lifetimes reborn as a monkey, that kind of specificity of action and result is something that we cannot actually come to see until we are a Buddha. But is the whole point of questioning if one can develop believing faith or not, is that to really make us as an audience get it's not gonna make intuitive sense, karma, unless we have to watch it like a hawk? Is that kind of the subtext or the meta message here? Is it is something that is so it's beyond abstract. It is something that we cannot actually perceive and understand naturally, that we really have to work at it all the time, guard our 3 doors like a hawk. Does that make sense what my question is? Because we ended with believing faith is kind of
right. So how about this? I understood a lot of what you said, but now just in one sentence, restate your question. Just like, this is my question.
If we can't generate believing faith, and yet it is absolutely important that we do generate believing faith in karma, where does that leave us? Right? So the message that,
No. Okay. So look. Let's go back, and we see all these statements. Where were they? Can you see this?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Where was this? Okay. Oops. Where was it? Where was it? Oh man. Ah, okay. From Shantideva. The sage, that's the Buddha, has said that conviction is the root of all virtues, and to constantly meditate on the fruitional effects is the root of this conviction. Okay. So, the first part of your question, if we can't develop this believing faith, we can. That's the point. So the Buddha is, this is so important. This is the root of the path. So many have traversed this path, right? So many have attained enlightenment. So of course, so many have developed this believing faith. So this first part, oh, if we can't do it, then what do? We can. That's the point. Now the question is how, right? The question is how. That's more difficult, right? But don't ask, oh, if we can't do this. We can do it. Then the question is, how do we do it? So how we do it is we have some rough idea, just like what we're doing, right? We go through Lamrim. We think about it. We read different texts. We read different commentaries, okay? And gradually we get some kind of rough understanding. This is just my opinion, okay? But just as I was saying, okay, how do we then make it practical? Okay, we know, I said just to Jorge, right? We know of afflictions when they arise in our mental continuum, it disturbs the mind. It then impels us to do actions that we come to later regret. Not we ask the Buddha, oh, hey, should I have yelled at my neighbor? We don't need to rely on the Buddha for that. We know the next day, oh man, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe, we have that, right? So here, we don't have to ask Buddha. We at least know some general, direction that we have. Bringing down the afflictions, not letting those, afflictions get the better of us and then causing us to do things that are harmful to ourselves or others. Okay? Can we do that? Yes. So then, when we talk about, okay, to have an inferential valid cognition of this. Okay, this is something we're going to, chew on for a while. How then we actually get the realization, right? But the point is, right, even before we get these realizations, we still have to live our lives. That's true, right? I don't realize emptiness. I don't have bodhicitta. I don't have any of these. But okay, I don't have the realization of bodhicitta. Now, do I then say, okay, I'm going to just act as self-centered as I ever have, right? No way, right? We start where we are. We have these goals, and then take one step at a time. How does that sound?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Wow. Okay, now look, I bring up these, kind of a little bit advanced topic, right? I told you this is something that we're debating at the winter debate session, right? All this stuff. It's really heavy. So, and I know that. And I'm giving it to you anyway, so that it's like challenging to you. And I'm not saying you're going to get the right answer in 3 months, right? We're debating this for 20 years. So again, I'm emphasizing again and again, don't try to arrive at the right answer, but try to understand the questions, and then based on those questions, ask more questions. This is nice about the tree, right? We get the tree, more questions, more questions. That's what I like at the beginning here. Okay. Anyway, now the time is running short. Means run out. So anyway, thank you very much. Let us do a quick dedication. So sorry about that. Went over time. So let's just dedicate the merit of listening. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and especially may it cause the essence of perfect, pure Losam Drakpa's teachings to shine forever. Okay, we'll send out a message with the reading for next week. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Venerable Namjang. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, Tashile, Namaste.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Spasiba.